A few months ago, a super cool dude,
also
known as my girlfriend, expressed a fair amount of interest in learning how to skateboard. She has long since recognized it as a much more convenient and efficient alternative to walking, and figured if she ever returned to school to work on her master's degree, then she'd use a skateboard to move about the campus swiftly. Prior to meeting me, this super cool dude hadn't so much as held a skateboard, let alone tried to ride one, so I knew this endeavor would be a fairly lengthy learning process, with myself at the helm as professor. But what I didn't anticipate was the full extent of this learning process. It was around this time that I had recently sprained my ankle, so I figured we'd be at a fairly similar skill level with our skateboarding, as I was feeling quite timid and uncomfortable on the board. However, even with a completely swollen and extremely painful foot, it would seem my confidence level was much higher than that of my girlfriend's. And this got me thinking about some things in skateboarding that I suppose I'd been taking for granted. So I don't know if you can see that behind me, but right there next to the skate park is a cemetery, and there's some guys over there doing some digging. Now, presumably there was some kind of landscaping company, they're just doing landscaping. That's fine. But it made me realize, it made me think, you could get away with grave digging if you just put on some high-vis gear. I got my first skateboard when I was 8 years old, and it didn't take long before I was completely immersed in the sport. And despite many hiatuses, some lasting a few years, once I eventually stepped on the board again, I found myself able to pick it up pretty easily. You never really lose it. It's like riding a bicycle, skateboard. The process of standing on and moving about with a skateboard has just become second nature to me, and I hardly ever need to think critically about it. But for someone who's gone their whole lives without the experience of what it's like to ride on this kind of wood plank, the concentration and mannerisms required don't come quite so naturally. The process of teaching this super cool dude how to master the art of skateboarding provided some unique insight about what other people think about skateboarding who don't necessarily do any skateboarding, some of the challenges that beginners face when coming into the sport, and a little bit of how to get around them. Who does this? Just parks it in the middle of the road?
Hey, that's Spootyskater.
What are you thinking, sir? Get out of here. So what do you think of skateboarding as a quote-unquote non-skater?
I think it's a good form of expression.
Seems like a pretty cool culture thing.
The way that a lot of the media is kind of portrayed as like a, I guess a form of rebellion.
It seems like it's something that you had to get into it earlier, have a early exposure to it to actually end up being good at this age.
For a lot of people who never really found their niche in the main, and they've kind of found this thing, been 100% themselves, and now it's blown up into the main, and now everyone thinks that it's cool. I think it's a whole bunch of, I guess, free thinkers found their way into the mainstream, made what was quote-unquote uncool cool.
I had a little bit of exposure in college, like a little bit of just standing on the board, but as somebody who doesn't skateboard at all, it's kind of an overwhelming thought, like an overwhelming hobby. to think about getting into. I mean, I did like Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Yeah.
And then, like, I guess, I don't know if I set my expectations too high, but when I tried, I was like, wait, this is a lot harder than video games.
What was your opinion of skateboarding before you tried it out for yourself?
I guess I thought it was cool, and not that, I don't know, I didn't think like skater guys were cool or skateboarding itself was cool. It was more like an exclusive activity. My cousin got a skateboard when she was like 13 or something, and I don't really think she did much on it, but she could at least ride through her neighborhood. And because I couldn't do it and she could, it was cool to me, but it wasn't the actual activity of it. It was just this idea that it's this thing that a lot of people in my life that I thought were cool, like my cousin, did. I guess in addition to that, I thought certain aspects, like for example, footwear. Like I thought Vans were super cool, and I remember my parents bought me a pair of Vans at the Vans shop in the Festival Bay Mall where the old skate park was.
Oh yeah.
But my brain didn't associate the skateboarding and the Vans being shoes for skateboarding. I just thought they were cool shoes.
Did you know just how deep the rabbit hole, if you will, goes? Like,
No, I mean, like we talked about, I didn't know before I watched you assemble a board that boards came in separate pieces.
Yeah.
I thought that everyone who had a skateboard just went and bought it like you do a bike.
now that you've had a few sessions, has your view of the sport changed? Your opinion of skateboarding, is it different now?
Yeah, and not just from personally doing it, but I guess being around people like that and going to skate parks with you, even as someone who's just observing and watching, and a lot of times I think it's cool to watch people do tricks and stuff.
Speak about your first skate session and how that was for you.
Well, like we talked about, the first thing, which I will continue to say and I still believe, is that I thought skateboards were flat and sturdy. And yes, the first time we went, the trucks were really loose, so it probably didn't help that it completely changed what I thought it was. But even when you did tighten them, there's still a certain level of my brain expected to step on something very sturdy because everyone I watch makes it look so stable. And then for me to step on it and it's like super wobbly and I feel like I'm gonna fall over, and I think I had to get past that.
So your perception of a skateboard and skateboarding changed pretty drastically once you yourself stepped on the board initially. What would you say was some of the hardest things about that first session?
I think there's a few things, and the first one is not realizing the ground or like the unevenness of how ground can feel. But on a skateboard, it's suddenly like you feel every little bump. Every time you ride over something, I felt it, and it freaked me out. And the second thing is not understanding how to position my body. And I feel like that's something even by the last session where I would forget how I'm supposed to stand. I was able to step back onto it quicker and remember, but still it took this like, okay, wait, I can't remember exactly what made me feel comfortable and I have to figure that out again. So the very first time I was very lost on how to even begin to feel stable or stabilize myself.
And in that first session you did take a pretty decent slam.
Yeah, and I didn't like that.
Yeah? What was that like for you?
It was scary. I thought I broke my elbow. Like when I fell to the ground, I know I landed on my elbow and I only got scraped, but still, I guess it's just the idea that your entire body weight is coming down on one part of your body. Yeah. Just my brain automatically was like, I broke my elbow. Even without the feeling of it or anything, I just immediately jumped to this conclusion that I fell.
Have you ever had a fall like that before?
No, I don't think so. Not as an adult anyways.
Yeah, skateboarding is one of those things that'll pull you to the ground in unexpected ways and also cause you to fall like you've never fallen before. But what would you say you enjoyed the most about your first few sessions?
I think by the last session, it was really fun to try and go fast because when I was able to get some speed, it was definitely fun.
You feel like you're floating?
Yeah. I can see why skateboarding would be a nice type of transportation, like a very easy type, because you can just take your skateboard with you. It's relatively compact and lightweight.
So I feel like I gave you a lot of instructions and coaching, I guess, if you will, when it came to the skateboarding, both verbal and physical. Do you think anything I said or did was helpful at all?
I don't think it's you. I just think it's because skateboarding is all about body position and movement and where the energy is going. And so I think it's really hard to put that into words and then someone else understand it. Even though you explained it really well, I don't think I really understood anything that you meant until we did that one activity where you took me around.
Yeah.
And then everything you said made sense because I was able to feel it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have been able to get to that point by myself.
I definitely feel like skateboarding, perhaps more than any other sport or activity or hobby or anything that you could learn, any skill, is one of those things that you can explain something to the nth degree and take lectures and notes and study and watch videos and trick tips and all this stuff, but until you get out there in person and you put your own body weight on the skateboard and you attempt to do the maneuvers yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to figure it out. There's no substitute for just getting out there and doing it yourself.
Well, you explain stuff all the time in your videos, and you explain to me how you do tricks, or how you were trying to troubleshoot a trick that you want to do and you don't know how to. And I completely understand everything you're saying, and I can see your feet moving, but when I stepped on the board, all of that was just like, I don't understand. I didn't even know how to make it go without you helping me, if that makes any sense. I just wouldn't have been able to get to that point. I feel like you have to have someone just take you and push you around so that you can feel where your body weight is.
That kind of goes into my next question, which is, if you could give beginners one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be that to have someone like take you and push you around so that way you can actually feel where your body weight is going, because I had no idea. And I know you kept saying like you're leaning back or lean forward more, put your knees, bend your knees more and lean forward. But I thought I was doing that, and I'm like, no, I am bending my knees. No, I am leaning forward. But it wasn't until we did that and I was like, oh, that's what you mean. That's what you mean by put my body weight forward.
Anything else you want to say about skateboarding, about your experience?
I still think it is really cool, and I think watching people do tricks is really fascinating, just because now that I've been on a skateboard, I know how much it probably takes to get there.
All of our thoughts and feelings and opinions are steeped in our perception, our ideas meticulously shaped by personal experience, the mental framework in which we rely painstakingly laid through past transgressions, and the notions that guide us unequivocally distorted by the position in which we solely inhabit the universe. Regardless of your personal rank, now it is time for you to share your perspective. Navigate to the section below this video and describe what you think about skateboarding. Whether you're just starting out, highly experienced, or have never heard about the activity before, your participation is strongly encouraged.
What's up, guys?